Hi, I'm Alan Nicholson. I'm a product manager here at Getvisibility, and I'm really excited to introduce you to our data risk assessment suite. So we gather information from file scans, machine learning classification, user access, and customer engagements to assess the risks that data poses to an organization's financial, legal, and reputational postures. The final output of our risk assessments are reports, and I'm going to take you through a couple of them now. So we use a scoring system in our risk metrics that helps customers to allocate resources to particular areas of concern. The scores increase in severity from 1 to 10, and we use a data risk algorithm to calculate these scores in such a way that they're comparable to each other, even though they use different metrics. So this is our share risk report. This will be done on an individual share and the access that users have to that share. So the first thing you might notice is that we're assessing critical files. So a critical file for us is a file that contains sensitive information or data that's crucial to the running of an organization. So this could be code, contracts, HR documents, anything that if it fell into the wrong hands would cause serious damage to the organization. So the ratio of critical files here in our first metric actually varies based on each customer because different organizations create different levels of data. But it gives a good viewpoint for our customer of where to begin in looking into how they create files. So when risk assessments are done on particular shares like this one, this metric helps to understand the value of the data stored in that location. The next one here that we see are critical files in the everyone group. This poses an incredible risk to an organization. If critical data was available to every user in an organization in the Active Directory, it could be exfiltrated very easily and cause massive amount of damage. So we would consider any small amount of files here available in the everyone group to pose a huge risk. So customers would need to undertake immediate remediation processes on their file permissions and access if any score was found here. For duplicate critical files, so these are files that contain critical information but have the exact same data in them. This is similar to ROT, where we have redundant, obsolete, and trivial files. However, when we use machine learning to assess the content of these files, we're able to tell our customers whether this is critical information, whether it's valuable information. So the value that they see here is that while removing duplicates is often necessary, knowing what you're removing in the duplicates can be even more beneficial. For critical stale files here, these are some organizations have retention policies for legal or for just organizational reasons that they have to hang on to data for a certain amount of time, or they have to delete data after a certain amount of time. So we, in engagement with customers, we can adjust this period to a certain amount. Here it's 6 months. We will tell the user how many of these critical files fall outside this. So users might need to delete them, or they might need to move these files to a certain location based on whatever regulatory regime they fall under. In highly accessible critical files, it's similar to the everyone group, but we're not basing it on just a group. We assess all the users and groups in an Active Directory and their access to critical data. So this is a more comprehensive view than the everyone group one. And again, if this was in any way high, any way small, it will be quite high score. So even 1% or 2% of critical files available to the majority of an organization is something that needs to be remediated quite quickly. Here we see the inactive users. So an inactive user, this can be set per deployment, but usually it's 90 days. A user that has not accessed the Active Directory or the file system in 90 days is considered inactive. These are users that quite often they could have left the organization quite recently. They could be contractors, or they could have been given temporary access to the file system without being or disabled or blocked. So access to these files from these users is highly dangerous, and it needs to be assessed. These users should have been, that their rights should have been paused before any of this was available to them. So these are the main metrics that we see here. That covers the share risk report. And for our dynamic risk score, so this shows our users the creation of critical files, overall files over time. This is very helpful when we're trying to look in and do an audit of what was happening throughout the year. So a spike in the creation of critical files could show some unusual activity that users might want to look into. It also gives users a very good view of the rate of critical file creation over time, so that they can assess whether this is something that stands out to them or not. So we could have seen a spike quite recently in the rate of critical creation, say during a period where a lot of users were actually leaving the company. This could be something that we want to look into and which will pose a high risk. So we're now going to take a look at, this is for one share. So obviously an organization has a lot more than one share, and we would run these reports for multiple shares. So here's our meta risk report, and this gives a look at all of the shares that we have access to and that we've run reports on, and this is what a customer would see overall, so that they could start doing remediation on a particular share or a particular department in an organization. So as you can see, we have HR, finance, and these are the main ones. We have reports on each one of these, and users can have access to those and can get granular details about the various users and the file access that's associated with all of these reports. And part of this as well is, again, an overall look at all of the user access. So with everyone group and all the critical files and the enabled and active users throughout the whole Active Directory. And of course, users with outdated passwords. This is, of course, very risky for all organizations, that when users don't change their passwords often. And this can be set in the background by us, and it's something that we would engage with customers with to adjust. And domain administrators is another critical thing that we need to look at. Domain administrators, there are users that have been given access, domain administrator level access, and quite often this is done almost accidentally. It can be done automatically in some ways. So identifying those is very important for users. Again, this will be creation over time in the whole share, and this is our audit risk score. So through engagement with the customers, we find out the areas of most concern, and we break them into 5 areas. So we have policies, software, staff, and hardware and planning. So policies in place, whether users are forced to act on while they're classifying data, whether they have antivirus, DLP process, training, the hardware, are these mobile devices that we have critical information on, what sort of endpoints are they, the laptops, are they servers, where is the information, and of course planning, what strategies are in place if exfiltration of data occurs. And finally, we wrap these up with general statistics that help users to just get a more granular look at what we've gone through. So this is the first step for a lot of our customers in beginning a remediation process, and it helps them to identify their areas of concern and where they need to start. So the data risk reports, overall, they alert customers to the data security posture. They help start a conversation about remediation. They cannot be unseen, and they serve as a call to action. It's very hard to dismiss a high risk score when it is shown to a customer, and it's very hard to not sell remediation afterwards. It also encourages repeat assessments. Users want to drop this score. They want to lower their scores and to show improvement over time. So a data risk assessment will be run every month, every 2 months, maybe every 6 months, as users start working on their processes, their software, and get more up to date on how their data risk posture is. And finally, we always find risk. We always find risk to data in every organization, and these risks will be uncovered by every data risk assessment that we do. So thanks very much for your time, and good luck.